conformity, you guys like almost putting like as like conformity versus obedience, like versus something like the enemy, and I'm thinking like, wow, I feel like why we need to balance, why we not balance them, why we need to make it like two trajectories that goes in a different direction and they never meet, for example. I look at the conformity in human behavior and human interaction in life. I think both of them we need it, because being human, sometimes we need to act based on the rules, and being human, sometimes we need to have a space for ourselves. We choose things that we want to be part of them. So that's why conformity and obedience for me, they look like very identical. I don't want to say like they are enemy or antagonistic terms, for example, but they are very identical. There's a little short discrepancies on these two ideas, I think. So that's why, in my views, conformity goes with, for example, an individual or persons who like to be part of maybe a community or group or country, for example. You travel from your country, you go to another country, and you think like you need to be part of that society. You think that they have a good lifestyle, social, that's adaptation, kind of somewhat adjust themselves with the other side. Perhaps desire to be part of them, perhaps desire to acquire something from them, perhaps maybe a space for personal growth and development, for example. Conformity goes in that line. And the obedience means that we need to follow the rules. I don't want to say like the word sometimes, for example. We need to be having principle, for example, personal growth principle, meaning that they are 1, 2, 3 are dividing. We don't need to critique, or let's say, we don't need to say like, there's a space or room for a discussion for it. For example, don't harm, meaning like we need to pay that idea, morally speaking. Don't harm someone, don't kill someone, for example. Those are obedient instructions, we need to pay them. Regardless of the pain or regardless of what I lack the experience, or there is no other terrorism on this point, for example. So that's why I think obedience, the instruction that came from the hierarchy, or let's say from high positions, and then it's oriented toward the individual or the people of the community. So people expect it to be follow up the instruction and guideline. So is it that bad? Intellectually, why we need to follow? That's a question, because the philosophy goes behind why not, why this, why we need to stay on this point. So philosophy here cannot be obedient. But that's why I said a learning process, acquisition process, obedience is somewhat difficult. There are a lot of things, I think. What do you think?
Actually, I remember that last time there were 1 or 2 examples about negative connotations to Arabic words or one Arabic word that you described and told, okay, this is the case that socially it is more like conformity and it is negative.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit, because actually I don't remember exactly.
Oh, do you recall
I think, if I remember correctly, we were talking about the word falangai and another word. Yes. So I'm not sure, but I think we were talking about these. The words falangai and ab.
Yes.
So we're talking about these 2 words, and we were also talking about their historicity, and we're talking about the connotations that they give, like the impressions that they give. And yes, so for example, the word falangai, especially today, if you're called falangai in a serious way, my God always calls me. Always calls me falangai. But anyway, if you're called falangai, then you're like, I can't actually find an English word that can describe this exactly, but like somebody who is like somebody who's oppressed, but who's happy with being oppressed, and somebody who works for the oppressor, and somebody who actually cheers for the oppressor, and somebody who's like a happy slave.
Happy slave.
See, so that's the term falangai. But then the term ab is just like, well, in West Sudan, for example, if you're called ab, it just simply means that you're not Arab, like for example, or you're not somebody who speaks Arabic property, or like somebody who belongs to certain tribes, or sometimes it's like a slave. So the word ab actually comes from abd, abd, but we just kind of shorten it and we make it like abd, and so that's those are the two terms.
Actually, good job. Actually, I like it because it also gives an illustration of the terms, how we can address, in some sense, or from a point of view, obedience or conformity.
Mm-hmm.
If I am not wrong, or maybe you correct me, there was the case that it was, I think it was described negatively, but one in a religious position, but that was following some orders, but was not in the top. I don't remember exactly the case, but I think so. It was described like.
Yeah.
Can you remember?
No, I think like the third point that he was making, the second terms, because he said like up, so that's the in Arabic meaning of a slave. Someone who is I don't want to use like the happy slave, but this is the first word is the happy slave. So someone, why we don't look at the life in generally to say that it's not about we are happy with something. It's about recognitions, believing that life cannot go smoothly if there is no rules.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's why this is the basis of the happy Falangai, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, in Sudan war, for example, like the context of what is happening in Sudan, there is a conflict, and the entire community is divided into two groups. Whether you other side or any side, mostly there are very little 1% or 3% people who are there like neutral or impartial on what is happening, for example. And why people they look at the division levels, because they think like one side it's kind of representing the Sudan, or for example the Sudanese military armed forces side. People think like this is the national institutions, and it's more iconically there in the national levels, and they kind of they are not doing more horrific things, bad things, and that's why we have so many groups. They join this side, and to preserve the Sudan as a country and preserve itself not to be collapsing for perhaps maybe the other side has a national, international, let's say lobby group fighting, or maybe some other countries they supporting the other side more to take the interest of the Sudan, for example. So that's why when the other those groups join the Sudan National Armed Forces groups, people regard them as the Falangai, meaning they're like happy Falangai, or let's say happy slave, meaning like someone who thinks that I have a disagreement with them, but I think it's the best option to be with them. Mm-hmm. So that's the idea of the happy Falangai, for example. But in my view, what about this is the clarity of believing on the rules, very important in life, regardless of the context of the rule that you have, for example. Like if I say like, do you believe on rules? You say, yes, I believe in rules. So meaning that you don't have any idea of that, but you know that what rule is, meaning the organization process in life. Mm-hmm. So if I say I submitted there should be a rules in life, then I agree the idea of that there should be rules, regardless of the context. So we can dispute on the articles, let's say, of the rules, but we don't dispute of whether we reject having rules or we don't reject it. So that's the way I think Falangai goes in that process. Meaning, like I agree that there is a Sudan National Army Forces institutions. Whether that's army institution is generally, let's say, using the title to focus only for their interests. Perhaps even they don't care about the civilian, perhaps, but they are in a title where they have a position of saying this is a Sudan national institutions. So meaning like sound is more big, sound like I think I accept the rules need to be there. So that's why I think like why we don't look at a happy Falangai is more better than
but that's it's good. It's quite interesting that you're saying we should like look at the rules, or we should agree on the rules regardless of their context. But context is everything, because like I don't have to agree on rules that are obviously unfair, or I don't have to agree on rules that I just made up. If you call an institution the national institution or the Supreme Court or whatever, and it does wrong things, it's still corrupted. Like you can't just make up names and make me follow them. That's just being obedient to
Happily.
and that's no, not necessarily happily, but being obedient. And so making names or calling things names that they don't actually represent doesn't make any difference. And that's kind of what happens. I don't want to say in Sudan because I don't want to talk about Sudan, but that's kind of what happens in general. People call things names that they don't actually represent, and they want others to follow. And if others don't follow, then those who don't follow are going to be called betrayers or like traitors, people who don't belong, people who are outsiders. And that's the thing, like, and this is very relevant to what we're talking about, because like, should we just obey whatever that we hear and whatever that sounds like a big name, or should we think and then pick and choose the things that actually represent the true and the true core that we want to support? And I think we should be very, very critical of whatever institution that calls itself national, supreme, whatever. And saying that this represents this and we should support it regardless of what it does is just like being obedient to whatever that you hear, regardless of what that thing does to you. And I don't want to be part of that.
Yes.